Hello everyone, it's Dimensional Raven here for another countdown video. Now I'm sorry about the long hiatus since my last videos, but I had A-levels to study for. Probably shouldn't have started YouTube then anyway. And I had them to do, and then I had a few holidays with family and friends. Then after results day, just kind of getting everything ready for university. So thankfully I achieved the grades and I'm in my first choice. Been here for a week and a bit, but just settling into a nice routine. And I think it's about time I kind of kick-started my YouTube career again. So I've got quite a few things I want to cover, but for today's video, it's going to be about a franchise that I've yet to tackle. One franchise that I think has kind of stood the test of time as being one of the greatest video game franchises of all time, and it is perhaps my favourite one as well. It's hard to say because Zelda Chronicles is my favourite game, and I haven't played X, but if X is if I like X, which I'm pretty much guaranteed to like, that will be my favourite franchise, even though there's only 2 games. But at the moment, Legend of Zelda is where it's at. Now, I came into the Legend of Zelda series very late, actually, because I got the 3DS on release day, and a few months later, to be honest, I don't know what I was playing, but a few months later I picked up Ocarina of Time. And I played a bit on one of my friend's consoles, and I was like, oh my god, this is good. Because I didn't know what to expect really. I was like, action, adventure, do I like that? So I played it, bought it like a day later, loved it, absolutely loved it. And then kind of got the back catalogue for Wii, GC, Game Boy Advance, DS, etc, etc. And I've played every game now actually through Virtual Console with 3DS Ambassador program, things like that. And most entries in the series are pretty amazing. I mean, the older ones haven't really aged that well, but considering they were released nearly 30 years ago, I'm not going to consider them for this video. Oh, yeah, I need to tell you what this video is actually. It's about my top 5 gripes from Zelda games. These are just kind of problems that I have with parts of games. But I'm going for a more modern era GBA Plus, where they actually could have fixed these gripes in game, whereas the older games, they're kind of, I don't want to say that they were unfixable at the time, but they also didn't need to be fixed at the time really. Whereas these ones I could easily have sorted out, and I'm just quite annoyed that they didn't, to be honest. So let's get started. Oh, one more thing. I'm only going to do one entry per, like one spot per game, because otherwise I imagine a lot of you would think it's just going to be a Skyward Sword video. Yes, Skyward Sword does have quite a few issues, but it's one of my favourite Zelda games, so I'm not going to just blast that and just bash it so easily. It's a really good game, but yeah, there are issues, and I'm going to talk about one in depth, but I might kind of mention the others as we get to it. I'll do this on other games as well, but mainly just one entry per series, per game. Alright, without further ado, let us begin.
Number 5.
Now at number 5 on my list is an issue I have with Ocarina of Time. Now, so kicking it off with the game that kicked me into liking Legend of Zelda, there was kind of nothing really wrong with it, story-wise, dungeon-wise. It was all good until you get near the end, and like some crazy shit happens to do with the Shadow Temple. Now the Shadow Temple is fine. You're an adult going into it. You've got really cool you've got the bombs, you've got arrows. You can pretty much take anything that comes your way and just crush it, especially with the Lens of Truth being amazing. But before you get there, you have to do what I think is absolutely the worst part of Ocarina of Time. The bottom of the well. Oh my god, this place is like Silent Hill, but in a Zelda game. Maybe it can't be that bad, can it? But giant, like, hands floating in acid, 3 deads screaming their heads off everywhere. Damn fucking shit up everywhere, oh my god. And then he's trying to bite your face off. Bearing in mind, at this point in the game, you're like a 7-year-old and you're going through like the bowels of hell just to find the lens of truth. No, there's no. And then it's a really confusing layout as well. Like, you go in there and try to find keys. Why would the key just be in a coffin? You've got to open coffin. Some of them contain gibdos. Some of them contain like bats that then catch on fire. Like, it's hell, basically. It's a living hell. I just hate it so much. And I'm not really cool to person on this because it's not like it's uber scary. But as a 7-year-old child in it, it's just flipping freaky, and I don't think they should have done this like this. I think they wanted the real scary stuff is probably actually in the Shadow Temple, as in weird ghost shit that looks like a skeleton on the front. But no one cares about that. You realize, oh, as I said earlier, you just crush everything. But as a child, it's just a different perspective. It's so much smaller. Everything is massive compared to you. It's just poor direction, Nintendo. Poor direction.
Number 4.
At number 4, Wolf Link from Twilight Princess. Now don't get me wrong, wolves are like one of my favourite animals, and I kind of like the idea of Link maybe being able to shape shift into creatures, especially wolves, since like the master of the night. But I just feel it was executed poorly, if that makes any sense. Like, there's nothing really too jarring about it, but I just feel as if it's not really explained too much. It's like, oh, you're a human, but when you enter the Twilight Realm, you become a wolf. Okay, thanks for that exposition. Just why? I feel like it was unnecessary. They could have done it different ways. Like, I feel like there's a lot of times, and this will crop up a bit later, when I feel like you kind of changed and you're unable to use things that you've collected throughout your journey, and I don't like that. I'm like, but I've got a master sword, I've got arrows, I've got bombs, etc. etc. Same thing kind of in the bottom of the world. You can't use your adult stuff as a kid. You can't use any of your weapons as a wolf. It makes sense, but then it's like, why bother including the wolf form in the first place? You wanted to have puzzles where you've got to find these light crystals. That's fine. Maybe you have a puzzle where, like, you can only kill the Twilight using Linda's hair. Okay, I kind of get that a bit, but instead of ramming it down your throat with Wolf Link running, jump, 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 you have it so you target with Linda's hair, and Link goes, why, yeah, this just kills them all. I think that would be cooler and a way to avoid kind of this bit of wolf shit, if you excuse the pun, in the first place. Plus, sniffing out random I think they're light spirits or something is not fun. I don't like the parts like that when we get Zelda games. I know they're fairly infrequent, but it's just annoying when you've got to collect random things for no apparent reason, just so you can stop being a wolf. Yeah, but I didn't want to be a wolf in the first place. Then you get the ability to turn into a wolf at will. Kind of cool because it's fun to scare people, but it's kind of a pointless endeavour that if they hadn't bothered with the wolf form, no one would have cared that you wouldn't be able to scare some townsfolk. They're good guys, and you can't. So yeah, it's just an unnecessary feature, I think. Like, and even with the digging, like, they solved that in Skyward Sword, giving Mogma mitts or digging mitts so you can dig holes and things like that. You've just easily done that in Twilight Princess as well. But no, you're stuck as a lame wolf thing. No.
Number 3.
At number 3 we have an issue that I have with the game Skyward Sword. Now, before I get into my main issue with it, let's go through some of the ones that a lot of other people have. Number 1, D or 5, pronounce it. The annoying, ever so tutorial spewing robot lady that lives in the master. Sorry, the goddess sword then becomes the master. She's just annoying and just pisses the hell out of most gamers. They're like, I know how to do this. Then there's the slow start. I mean, I've played the game twice now, beaten it twice, and I'm replaying a third one at the moment. And a thing that really jars me, and I think if you're looking at Rabbit Luigi, fellow Brett, he's playing it, is the slow start. It's like two and a half hours just kind of doing the basic tutorials, getting into the story. And if you've played it once, you would expect there to be an opportunity to skip. Nope. So you go through all of it. I mean, come on, the slow start is even slower than Regigigas. Pokemon joke. And then another major concern with the game is the kind of emptiness of the sky. It almost feels unfinished, rushed even. If you get what I mean, as in they've kind of designed a few core islands and then they were like, we've got to get this out for the 25th anniversary. Doesn't matter, just stick it with random rocks, fill out the sky, who cares. So it does seem a little bit unfinished, but nevertheless, all those ones I think kind of pale in my view to my main issue with the game, which is the silent realms. Now I know what you're thinking, but silent realms are like a cool way to experience the kind of challenges of youth. Like, you're alone, you gotta go collect these things. But no, they're like nearly impossible for a first time player. Because sure, you can get those other little fruit and then show you where they are, but it's still darn hard, especially in some of the areas that are just kind of a little bit they are confusing to navigate without the fact that there are giant guardians things about to scythe your head off. And then there's the fact that you're kind of one hit KO, and they're everywhere, and I hate the ones that with little lanterns that then will chase after. Oh my god, it's one is so stressful, and when you're spotted, the music just goes insane, and you're like, how long can you last before you're screwed? And then the stamina bar, which I like as a feature, but then you're like, run, oh no, I can't run anymore, no, and I'm caught and I die and I'm starting again, and I had 14 out of the 15, it's just so irritating. And like with the Wolf Link and with becoming a child in Ocarina of Time, I really don't like it when everything you've collected thus far becomes useless and you effectively become Link without anything. It's just stupid. Like, you've collected all these great bits of equipment, you can kill giant bosses, but suddenly you just one hit KO'd and there's nothing you have to protect yourself. You just gotta run around and hope you find the Tears of Light, which flipping annoying. Plus the fact that you have to do this 4 times throughout the game. Sorry if that's a spoiler, I'm not sure what it would be, but you do it in Faun, then Eldin, then oh god, it's hard, Sinking Sand as well, and then you finally do it in Skylog, which is like odd because that's a place that's kind of been a safe haven mainly. But yeah, I really hate this, I don't want to say feature of the game, but this portion of the game, and I feel it's kind of unnecessary. Like, you do it to like show that you've progressed in like 3 elements to Triforce, but if I didn't have it, I don't think it would change the game whatsoever. So yeah, I found them unnecessary and just annoyingly hard.
Number 2.
Now, my entry for number 2 is kind of a cheat in that it's 2 games in one. It's the 2 DS Zelda games, Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks. Now, the games as a whole aren't bad, but the control system is. Look, I know Nintendo wanted to show off the stylus feature as much as possible in the kind of early days of the DS being released. Wanted to include it in like all their franchises, and I think it's cool for puzzles involving boomerangs and things like that. But when the stylus is your method of moving, that's just wrong. And I know that people are going to say, but you wouldn't be able to move in a kind of 3D environment with a D-pad. Yeah, you're right, but they shouldn't have put. They should have put the D-pad there. They should have put a circle pad like the 3DS, because they knew in this era, like I mean, Super Mario 64 DS is flipping impossible because there's no ability to kind of move anywhere outside of a square. So they should have just had a circle pad in the game, bundled on the system in the first place. It would have made a lot of games much simpler, and it would have still accommodated the square movement of things like Pokemon and Fire Emblem Advance Wars. I think that's what they're called. You know what I mean? Intelligent people do, intelligent systems. But anyway, the control system in Phantom Hourglass and Switch Ads is really infuriating. Just the movement, like you tap the screen, Link move there eventually, but it's just so slow. And I really wish they designed the DS itself slightly differently, just so this could be achieved. Just so you could move around much easier in the game. I feel like putting everything on the stylus is just not a good idea. With not a solid like base to make a game around. And in my view, I think that's why these two games are kinda overlooked, and I would say kind of deservedly so as well. So sorry, your control system is bad, and you should feel bad too, games. Before we get to number one, let's have some dishonourable mentions. Wind Waker, for having super slow sailing, all the kind of, well, the lack of stuff to do, again, a bit like Skyward Sword. I mean, there's more islands, but there's still a lot of emptiness. And also the Triforce Sharp, but they did fix this for HD, so that's why it's not actually in this top 5. I know it's kind of cheaty because it was a redo, but like Ocarina of Time's redo, they didn't fix Bottom of the Line. So, yeah, I mean, it's fair to say that this doesn't become part of my top 5 anyway.
Number 1.
Now, coming in at number 1 in my list, so it's like my biggest gripe with the modern era games, is again another kind of cop-out thing, in that it's an entire game. Now, if you've been kind of working on your fingers your way through the modern Zelda games, you'll probably know what this is going to be. And no, it's not Link's Crossbow Training, well, that was awful. It is A Link Between Worlds. Just the whole game. Yep, haters gonna hate, but I really thought this game could have been so much better. And expectations were high. It was like the next Link to the Past, which was really good, and it hasn't aged badly at all. So that's cool for that game. But no, instead we get. I think I'm more disappointed with the graphics of that than people were when they did Wind Waker. Well, they probably not. I mean, they were expecting something amazing, but I've wanted another 3D game in the same vein as Ocarina of Time. I know I've now got Majora's Mask, but I wanted a new one. And they were like, yeah, we're going to do a new one that's going to be like A Link to the Past. I was thinking, oh cool, A Link to the Past, like the world fully updated but with a brand new story and brand new dungeons and everything. I thought, oh, this is going to be fantastic. And you get it, and it's like, it looks like a stinking pile of horseshit. I mean, it's a polished look in that it's kind of clearly not last gen, but it still feels and plays last gen. Puzzles are, contrary to popular belief, are very easy, and there's no challenge in the game at all. I guess I think there's maybe one boss that's a little tricky, but like I beat it in about 15 hours, and I'm kinda wish I hadn't spent money on it, really. Like it's the story's kinda okay with the two different with Hyrule and Laurel, but it's a pun on Hyrule being high and Laurel being low, for those that don't know. But it's just a bit lame. I do like what they did with Ravio, who's, spoiler alert for those who haven't completed it, I don't know how you haven't completed it if you've played it. He's Link, but from Laurel, so that's pretty cool when you find that out. But then like the search quest is finding some mice. What the hell are mice? And it's just boring heart pieces. You don't even need that many hearts. pieces like to beat it, to beat the game. So there's no real incentive to collect them. The overworld. I know this is going to sound mean to Link to the Past because that's what it's based on, but the overworld is quite bland for what it could be. There aren't that many. There's like one civilization area, and that's tiny as well. And everything else is just a bit lame. You've got Zoras that pop up for about half a minute, and you've got like there's a weird thing where you gotta like run most of the place, and it's just pointless. Like the only redeeming feature for me is the fact that you can like upgrade the Master Sword with those quite tricky to find things. But other than that, there's nothing to it. All the enemies, sure they say have weaknesses to certain weapons, but they're really easy. The fact that weapons that you don't need to like recollect arrows and stuff, you just charge it. You might just stand still for a bit, wait until everything is back to full power. It's just too easy and not what I wanted on the 3DS. Following Ocarina of Time. I know a lot of people like it, and I'm sorry to those people that do, but I really hate it, and I wish they'd done better. Oh, and now to top it all off, the new game, what was it, Triforce Heroes? It's got the same awful art style. Plus, Zelda should never really be multiplayer. I mean, the Four Swords kind of did it well, but I much prefer Zelda as a single player experience. Oh, and also the teleport system around with you get on an enchanted broom. Really, there's so much I can say that about the game that I hate, but it has been a while since I played it, and I was just doing these things kind of off the top of my head. But basically, if you're debating about buying it or not, don't buy it. Seriously, keep your money. There are so many better. Hey, I'd recommend buying like Tank for the Wii U over that. And Tank is shit. Alright, this is Dimensional Raven signing off. Peace out, little brothers.